Constance Thornwood's champagne glass exploded against Elena's face. Glass shards sliced 3 deep cuts across her cheek. Blood dripped onto the marble floor of the Plaza Hotel ballroom while 500 guests stood frozen. "You think you can stand next to my son like you're one of us?" Elena didn't move, didn't cry. 3 years of scrubbing their floors, cooking their meals, eating standing up like a dog, she had learned that tears only made Constance hit harder. But tonight, the woman bleeding on this floor holds a secret that will destroy the Thornwood empire before dessert is served. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Tug. Glass crunched under Constance Thornwood's Louboutin heels as she stepped closer to Elena. "Clean it up." Elena's blood mixed with champagne on the marble. Her hands were steady. Her voice was steady. 3 years had taught her how to bleed without shaking. "I said, clean it up." Constance grabbed a cloth napkin from a nearby table and threw it at Elena's chest. "On your knees, like you do at home." The ballroom was silent. 500 of New York's elite stood frozen with drinks in their hands. Senators, hedge fund managers, the chairman of Goldman Sachs. They watched like this was theater. Elena bent down. She picked up the napkin, and she wiped her own blood off the floor while her mother-in-law smiled. "Good girl," Constance said. "See how easy that was 3 years, and she's finally learning her place." Marcus Thornwood stood 10 feet away. His arm was wrapped around Vivian Drake's waist. His eyes were fixed on the ceiling. He said nothing. Elena had stopped expecting him to say anything 2 years ago. The first year of marriage, she had waited for him to defend her. The second year, she had begged. The third year, she had simply watched him disappear into doorways and bathrooms and phone calls whenever his mother started in. "Marcus." Elena stood up, the bloody napkin clutched in her fist. "Your mother just assaulted me. You provoked her. I walked into the room." "You walked into the room dressed like that?" Marcus finally looked at her. His handsome face twisted into something ugly. "Mother told you to wear the gray dress, the one that doesn't attract attention. Instead, you show up in a dress my husband bought me for our anniversary. I bought you that dress for dinner at home, not for—" Marcus gestured at the glittering crowd. "Not for this." "For what, Marcus? For an event where I might accidentally look like I belong." "You don't belong." Constance stepped between them. Her perfume was suffocating Chanel No. 5, $300 an ounce. "That's the point, Elena. You never belonged. You were a barista, a nobody from nowhere. My son made a mistake, and we've been paying for it ever since." Elena remembered the first time Constance had called her a mistake, 3 days after the wedding. Elena had come downstairs for breakfast, excited to start her new life. Constance was sitting at the head of the table reading the Wall Street Journal. "The help eats in the kitchen," Constance had said without looking up. Elena had laughed. "I'm not the help. I'm Marcus's wife." Constance had finally looked at her. Cold, measuring, dismissive. "Same thing, dear." That was day 3. By day 30, Elena was doing the laundry. By day 90, she was cooking all the meals. By day 300, she had stopped eating at the table entirely because it was easier than fighting. By day 1000, she had forgotten what it felt like to be treated like a human being. "I want her gone." Vivian Drake's voice cut through Elena's memories. The heiress was pouting her collagen-enhanced lips, forming a perfect moue of displeasure. "Marcus, you promised tonight would be special. You promised we could finally be public. We are public, baby." Not with her standing there bleeding everywhere. Vivian wrinkled her nose. "It's disgusting. She's disgusting. Get rid of her." Elena looked at the woman who had been sleeping with her husband for 18 months. She knew about the affair. She had known since the beginning. She had found the texts on Marcus's phone. He was careless, leaving it unlocked on the bathroom counter while he showered. She had read every message, every plan, every promise he made to Vivian. While Elena slept alone in the guest room he had banished her to. "Marcus!" Arthur Thornwood's voice boomed across the ballroom. The family patriarch pushed through the crowd, his massive frame parting the guests like a ship through water. What the hell is happening here? Nothing, father. Elena was just leaving. Was she? Arthur looked at Elena. His eyes were the same cold blue as his son's, but harder, crueler. Good. She shouldn't be here anyway. She's my wife. She's your mistake. Arthur grabbed Marcus's shoulder and squeezed. A mistake you promised to correct 3 years ago. Remember that conversation? The one we had the night before your wedding. Elena felt the words like a punch to the stomach. What conversation? Arthur smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Marcus didn't tell you. The night before you walked down the aisle, he sat in my study and promised me this marriage was temporary. A phase. He said he'd have divorce papers signed before his 30th birthday. That's... Elena looked at Marcus. That's not true. Marcus wouldn't meet her eyes. Marcus. It was complicated, he muttered. Father was threatening to cut me off. I had to say something to calm him down. So you promised to divorce me, before we were even married. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Elena's voice rose. Not screaming, something worse, something broken. What was it like, Marcus? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I've spent 3 years being humiliated and degraded and treated like garbage for a marriage you never intended to honor. Elena, I gave up everything for you. The words came out cracked, jagged. I left my job. I left my friends. I left my entire life in Seattle because you said you loved me. You said your family would learn to accept me. You said, I said what I needed to say. Marcus finally looked at her. His face was hard. You were convenient, Elena. You were easy. You looked at me like I hung the moon, and I liked how that felt. But this... He gestured at the ballroom at Vivian, at his parents. This is reality. This is my life. And you were never going to be part of it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. Divorce papers. I was going to give them to you tomorrow, but since we're having this conversation... He threw them at her feet. Sign them. Take the Honda Civic and whatever clothes you can fit in a suitcase. Walk away. And if I don't, then I'll destroy you. Arthur stepped forward, his bulk blocking out the light. I'll make sure you never work again. Never rent an apartment. Never get a credit card or a bank loan or a job at any company that does business in the state of New York. The Thornwood name opens doors, Elena, but it can also seal them shut, permanently. Elena looked at the papers on the floor. She looked at Marcus, who was already turning back to Vivian. She looked at Constance, who was smirking like a cat with a mouse under its paw. She looked at Arthur, whose eyes promised ruin, and something inside her finally snapped. Not broke. Snapped. Like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long and suddenly found its original shape. You know what's funny? Elena said quietly. I used to pray for this moment. Constance laughed. What moment? The moment you finally realized you don't belong. No. Elena bent down and picked up the divorce papers. The moment you finally showed me who you really are. All of you. In public. With witnesses. What are you talking about? Elena tucked the papers into her clutch. 3 years ago, I made a promise to someone I loved. Someone who was dying. He made me swear that I would go out into the world and find someone who loved me for who I am. Not for what I represent. Not for my family name. Just me. Your family name. Vivian giggled. What family name? You're a barista from Seattle. No. Elena smiled. It was a cold smile. A dangerous smile. A smile none of them had ever seen before. I'm not. The ballroom doors crashed open. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Every head in the room turned toward the entrance. A man walked in. He was tall, broad, built like a weapon given human form. A scar ran through his left eyebrow, and his eyes were gray and flat and utterly without mercy. He wore a tuxedo that cost more than most people's cars, but he wore it like armor. He scanned the room once, twice. His gaze landed on Elena, on the blood on her cheek, the cuts from the broken glass. Something in his expression changed. It wasn't obvious, just a tightening around the jaw, a flicker in those cold eyes. But Elena saw it, and she knew what it meant. Someone was going to pay for making her bleed. "Who the hell are you?" Arthur Thornwood demanded. The man didn't answer. He walked through this crowd, and people moved out of his way like they were responding to some primal instinct. Prey, recognizing a predator. He stopped in front of Elena. "Your Highness." His voice was low, rough controlled. "You're injured." "It's nothing, Dominic." "It's not nothing." He produced a handkerchief from his pocket, pure white linen, monogrammed with a crown. "May I?" Elena nodded. Dominic Kane pressed the handkerchief gently against her cheek. His hands were calloused, scarred, capable of terrible violence, but his touch was gentle. "I'm going to ask you a question," he said quietly for her ears only, "and I need you to answer honestly. Ask. Do you want me to hurt them?" Elena looked at the Thornwoods, at Marcus, who had gone pale, at Constance, who was clutching her husband's arm, at Arthur, whose political instincts were finally catching up to the danger in the room. "No," she said. "I want to hurt them myself." Dominic nodded. Something like pride flickered in his eyes. "Then let's begin." He turned to face the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Commander Dominic Kane. I serve as the head of security for the Royal House of Montenegro. I am here tonight to escort Her Royal Highness, Princess Elena Maria Petrovich, to safety." The silence that followed was absolute. Then Constance Thornwood laughed. "Princess," she clutched her pearls, genuinely amused. "This is absurd. This woman scrubs my toilets. She's a nobody, a nothing, a gold-digging whore who tricked my son into marriage." "Mrs. Thornwood." Dominic's voice was ice. "You have just committed 2 crimes. Assault on a member of a royal family, which carries a minimum sentence of 15 years under international law, and slander of a head of state, which my government will prosecute to the fullest extent. This is ridiculous." "Additionally," Dominic continued, "your fingerprints are now on the champagne glass you used as a weapon, the glass that is currently being collected by my team as evidence. The cuts on Her Highness's face will be documented by a physician, and the 500 witnesses in this room will be subpoenaed to testify about what they saw tonight." Constance's face went white. "You can't." "I can, I will. And unless you step back from Her Highness immediately, I will add threatening a protected diplomatic official to the list of charges." Constance stumbled backward, nearly falling. Arthur caught her arm. "Now wait a minute," Arthur said, his voice losing its bluster. "Let's all calm down. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. If Her Highness has been treated poorly in our home, we certainly apologize. We had no idea." "You had no idea." Elena stepped forward. The fear was gone from her voice. The trembling was gone from her hands. She stood like a queen. "You had no idea who I was. That's your defense." "Well, yes, if we had known. If you had known I was a princess, you would have treated me differently." Elena laughed. It was a hollow sound. "That's not a defense, Arthur. That's a confession." "I don't understand." "I know you don't. That's the problem." Elena turned to address the crowd. 3 years ago, my father, King Nikolai of Montenegro, was dying. On his deathbed, he made me promise that I would experience life as a commoner before taking the throne. He believed it would make me a better ruler. He believed I needed to understand how ordinary people live. She paused. "So I went to Seattle. I got a job at a coffee shop. I lived in a studio apartment. I waited tables and made lattes and rode the bus like everyone else. And I waited. I waited for someone to love me without knowing who I was." Elena looked at Marcus. "Then you walked in. Charming, handsome, full of stories about being misunderstood by your family. I thought I had found someone who saw me. Really saw me. Not the crown. Not the money. Just Elena." Marcus's face was gray. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "I was wrong." Elena's voice hardened. "You never saw me, Marcus. You saw a poor girl who looked at you like you were a hero. You saw someone you could control, someone you could discard when you got bored. Elena, I didn't. You watched your mother make me scrub floors. You watched her throw food at me when the soup was too cold. You watched her lock me in the basement overnight because I accidentally broke a vase. Elena's voice cracked just slightly on the last word. And you did nothing. Not once. Not ever. She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone. So I started documenting every conversation, every crime, every late-night phone call your father made to his business partners, every bribe your mother paid to health inspectors and building officials, every dollar you moved through offshore accounts to avoid taxes. Arthur Thornwood made a choking sound. I have 3 years of evidence, Elena continued. 3 years of recordings and photographs and financial documents. Enough to put every member of this family in prison for the rest of their lives. You're bluffing. Arthur's voice was desperate. You wouldn't... I already have. Elena held up her phone. 15 minutes ago, I transmitted everything to the FBI, the SEC, and the Department of Justice. As we speak, federal agents are executing search warrants at your offices, your homes, and your offshore accounts. Phones started buzzing throughout the ballroom. Thornwood Industries stock just dropped 50%, someone shouted. 60%. The trading has been halted. Arthur Thornwood clutched his chest. His face was the color of old paper. You've destroyed us, he gasped. Everything we built. You destroyed yourselves. Elena tucked her phone away. I just kept receipts. She turned and walked toward the exit. Elena, wait. Marcus stumbled after her, grabbing her arm. Please, I love you. I was wrong. I'll change. Dominic moved. It happened so fast that most people in the room didn't see it. One moment Marcus was grabbing Elena's arm. The next moment he was on his knees, his wrist bent at an angle that made Constance scream. Do not, Dominic said softly, touch her. Let him go, Dominic. Elena's voice was tired. Dominic held Marcus's wrist for one more second long enough to make his point, then released it. Marcus crumpled to the floor, cradling his arm. I could have loved you, Marcus. Elena looked down at her husband. I did love you. For 3 years I loved you, even when you didn't deserve it. Even when you made me eat standing up. Even when you locked me in a guest room while you slept with other women. I kept thinking maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow he'll see me. Maybe tomorrow he'll choose me. She shook her head. Tomorrow never came. Elena walked toward the door. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Dominic, she said quietly. Yes, Your Highness. Take me home. With pleasure. They walked out together, a queen and her guardian, leaving the ruins of the Thornwood Empire burning behind them. The elevator doors closed. Elena leaned against the wall, finally allowing herself to breathe. The adrenaline was fading, and she could feel the sting of the cuts on her cheek. You're shaking, Dominic said. I know. You were magnificent in there. I know that too. She laughed weakly. 3 years of rehearsing that speech. I thought I'd feel different when I finally said it. Different how? Triumphant. Victorious. She closed her eyes. Instead, I just feel tired. The elevator hummed upward. Dominic was silent for a long moment. Your father would have been proud. Elena opened her eyes. You think so? I know so. Dominic's voice was rough. He asked me to watch over you. Before he died, he made me promise that no matter what happened, I would keep you safe. Is that why you called every Sunday at 3 a.m.? Yes. Is that why you offered to extract me 100 times? Yes. Is that why you waited 1,095 days for me to make this call? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. That's something else entirely. Elena looked at him, at the scar through his eyebrow, at the gray eyes that had seen so much violence, at the hands that could kill a man in seconds but had touched her cheek so gently. Dominic. Yes, Your Highness. When we get home, we need to talk. About, about who the Thornwoods were laundering money for. Elena's voice hardened. They weren't smart enough to build that network themselves. Someone was pulling their strings. Someone dangerous. Dominic's jaw tightened. I have a suspicion, he said quietly. Tell me. Not here. The elevator doors opened onto the roof where a helicopter waited, rotors already spinning. But when we're safe, when you're home, I'll tell you everything. Elena stepped out into the cold night air. The lights of Manhattan stretched below her like a carpet of diamonds. She had come to this city as a princess hiding in plain sight. She was leaving as a queen who had burned her enemies to ashes. But as she climbed into the helicopter, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Thornwoods were destroyed. But whatever was behind them, whoever had been pulling their strings, was still out there. And they were going to come for her next. The helicopter touched down on the palace grounds at 4 a.m. Elena hadn't slept. She had spent the flight staring out the window at the black Atlantic below, watching the lights of America disappear behind her. Dominic sat across from her silent, his eyes never leaving her face. When the rotors finally stopped spinning, Elena stepped out onto Montenegrin soil for the first time in 3 years. The air smelled like salt and pine, like home. Your Highness. A woman in a crisp military uniform approached, flanked by 4 guards. Welcome back. The Prime Minister is waiting in your study. Tell him I'll see him in the morning. Ma'am, he insists, and I insist on a shower and a change of clothes before I discuss affairs of state. Elena's voice carried the weight of a woman who had just demolished an empire. The Prime Minister can wait. He's been running the country for 3 years without me. A few more hours won't matter. The woman saluted and retreated. Dominic fell into step beside Elena as she walked toward the palace. You should see him tonight. I should do a lot of things. Elena kept walking. Right now I need to wash the Thornwood stench off my skin. Then we're going to have that conversation you promised me. Elena, don't. She stopped, turned, looked up at him. Don't Elena me, Dominic. You've been holding something back since we left New York. I saw it in your eyes when I mentioned the Thornwoods partners. You know something. Dominic's jaw tightened. I know a lot of things. Then start talking. Not here. He glanced at the guards stationed along the walkway. In private. After you've rested. I don't need rest. I need answers. You need both. Dominic's voice softened. Please. Trust me for a few more hours. Elena studied his face. The scar, the gray eyes, the tension coiled in every muscle. She had trusted this man with her life for 3 years. He had never once let her down. Fine, she said. 1 hour. Then you tell me everything. The shower was scalding hot. Elena stood under the water until her skin turned red, watching the remnants of champagne and blood swirl down the drain. She touched the cuts on her cheek, 3 parallel lines already scabbing over. They would scar. She would carry the Thornwoods on her face forever. Good. She wanted to remember. When she emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a silk robe, Dominic was standing by the window of her private chambers. He had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. In the lamplight, she could see the scars that covered his forearms, old wounds white with age. You've never told me where those came from, Elena said. Dominic didn't turn around. You never asked. I'm asking now. He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, detached, like he was reading from a report. My father gave me my first scar when I was 6 years old. I had failed to field strip a pistol in under 30 seconds. He held my arm over a candle flame until I passed out from the pain. Elena's stomach turned. Dominic. By the time I was 12, I could assemble any weapon in the dark. By 15, I had killed my first man. By 18, I was being groomed to take over the family business. What business? Dominic finally turned to face her. His eyes were empty, hollow. The Volkov Syndicate. The name hit Elena like a physical blow. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. The Volkov Syndicate was the most powerful criminal organization in Eastern Europe. Arms trafficking, human smuggling, money laundering on a scale that made the Thornwoods look like pickpockets. "Your father," Elena whispered. "Viktor Volkov." "Yes. You're his son." "I was his son." Dominic's voice hardened. "I stopped being his son 20 years ago when he ordered me to execute a family that owed him money. The parents, the children, everyone." "What did you do?" "I refused." Dominic laughed bitterly. First time I had ever said no to him. He didn't take it well. He lifted his shirt. Elena gasped. His torso was a roadmap of violence, burn scars, knife wounds. What looked like bullet holes long healed but still visible. "He spent 3 days teaching me what happens to people who disobey Viktor Volkov," Dominic said quietly. "When he was finished, he left me for dead in a ditch outside Podgorica. A farmer found me, nursed me back to health. I joined the French Foreign Legion the day I could walk again. And you never went back. I never existed anymore. Silas Volkov died in that ditch. Dominic Kane was born." He lowered his shirt. "I changed my name, changed my face, spent 15 years becoming someone else. Someone better." "Does my father know?" "He knew everything. It's why he hired me." Dominic met her eyes. He said the only person who could protect his daughter from the wolves was someone who had been raised by them. Elena sank onto the edge of her bed. Her mind was racing, trying to process what she was hearing. "The Thornwoods," she said slowly. "They were laundering money for the Volkov Syndicate." "Yes. And when I destroyed them tonight, I destroyed $400 million that belonged to your father. My former father, but yes. He's going to come after me." Dominic crossed the room in 3 strides. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Listen to me," he said fiercely. "Viktor Volkov has wanted me dead for 20 years. He's sent assassins. He's hired bounty hunters. He's put a $10 million price on my head. I've survived all of it. But now he has a reason to come here. To Montenegro, to this palace. He won't get within 100 miles of you. I swear it." "You can't promise that." "I can." Dominic squeezed her hands. "I've spent my entire adult life preparing for the moment my father finds me. Every security protocol in this palace, every guard, every weapon, it's all designed to stop him. He doesn't know it, but I've been building a fortress around you for 3 years." Elena looked into his eyes. She saw the desperation there, the fear, not for himself, for her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do all that? You're just my bodyguard." Dominic's jaw tightened. He released her hands and stood up. "We should discuss security arrangements for the morning." "Dominic, the Prime Minister will want a full briefing. I'll coordinate with the palace guard to—" "Dominic." Elena stood up. "Answer my question. Why do you care so much about protecting me?" He stopped. His back was to her. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. "Because your father asked me to." "That's not the only reason." "It's the only reason that matters." "Liar." Dominic spun around. His eyes were blazing. "What do you want me to say?" "Elena, that I've spent 3 years listening to you cry on the phone every Sunday at 3 a.m. That I've memorized every bruise, every insult, every time that worthless husband of yours made you feel small. That I wanted to fly to New York 1,000 times and put a bullet in Marcus Thornwood's head for the way he treated you. Dominic, I'm your bodyguard." His voice cracked. "That's all I'm allowed to be. You're a princess, a queen, and I'm the son of a monster. The most I can ever hope for is to stand in the shadows and keep you safe from a distance." Elena stepped closer to him. "And if I don't want you in the shadows, then you're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years." She reached up and touched his face. Her fingers traced the scar through his eyebrow. "You're the only person in the world who has never lied to me. The only person who has never wanted something from me. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Dominic closed his eyes. His whole body was trembling. Elena, don't. Don't what? Don't make me want something I can't have. What if you can have it? His eyes snapped open. For a moment, Elena saw everything he had been hiding. The longing, the pain, the desperate, hopeless love he had carried in silence for 3 years. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. Dominic stepped back, pulling the phone from his pocket. His face went pale as he looked at the screen. What is it? Elena asked. Perimeter alert. His voice was clipped professional. The vulnerable man from moments ago had vanished, replaced by the soldier. Something triggered the sensors at the north gate. An animal. The sensors are calibrated to ignore wildlife. Dominic was already moving toward the door. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. Dominic, promise me. Elena nodded. Dominic disappeared into the hallway. Elena locked the door and pressed her back against it, her heart pounding. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Then her phone buzzed. Elena looked at the screen. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Hello. Princess Elena. The voice was deep, cultured, cold. My name is Victor Volkov. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Elena's blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? I get everything I want, princess. That's what happens when you have unlimited resources and no conscience. Victor chuckled. I must say I was impressed by your performance tonight. Destroying the Thornwoods like that. Very theatrical. Very effective. What do you want? My money. All $400 million of it. Plus interest. Plus damages for the inconvenience you've caused me. I don't have your money. No, but you have access to the Montenegrin treasury. A small country, but a wealthy one. I'm sure you can find the funds. And if I refuse... Victor was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, all the charm was gone from his voice. I'm standing at your North Gate, princess. In about 30 seconds, my men are going to blow it open. Then they're going to enter your palace, kill everyone inside, and bring you to me. I'm going to take my time with you. Days, maybe weeks. And when I'm finished, I'm going to send what's left to my son as a message. Your son is going to kill you. My son is soft. He always was. That's why I had to teach him so many lessons when he was young. Victor laughed. But don't worry, after tonight I won't have a son anymore, just a corpse. The line went dead. Elena's hands were shaking. She grabbed her phone and called Dominic. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. The first explosion shook the palace. Elena stumbled, catching herself on the dresser. Alarm started screaming, a deafening wail that filled every corridor. She had to move. Elena ran to her closet and pulled out the emergency bag Dominic had prepared for her years ago. Inside, a change of clothes, a first aid kit, a satellite phone, and a Glock 19 with 3 extra magazines. She had never fired a gun before. She loaded it anyway. Another explosion closer this time. The lights flickered, then died. Emergency generators kicked in, bathing the room in red. Elena heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, multiple sets. She pressed herself against the wall beside the door, the gun raised in trembling hands. The footsteps stopped outside her room. Someone tried the door handle. Princess? A voice she didn't recognize. We know you're in there. Open the door, and we won't hurt you. Elena said nothing. Victor wants you alive, the voice continued. But he didn't say anything about undamaged. Open the door or we'll blow it open. Your choice. Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. The door exploded inward. 2 men rushed through tactical gear, night vision goggles, assault rifles. They swept the room with professional efficiency. They didn't see her behind the door. Elena fired twice. The first shot missed. The second caught the lead man in the thigh. He went down screaming. The second man spun toward her, rifle rising. Time slowed down. Elena saw the barrel of his gun, saw his finger on the trigger, saw her own death reflected in his night vision goggles. Then his head snapped back and he crumpled to the floor. Dominic stood in the doorway, smoke curling from his pistol. "Go," he said. "Panic room. Now." "How many are there?" "At least 20. Victor brought a small army." Dominic grabbed Elena's arm and pulled her into the hallway. "The palace guard is holding them at the west wing, but they won't last long." They ran through corridors that Elena had walked 1,000 times as a child, past portraits of her ancestors, past the study where her father had taught her to play chess, past the dining room where she had celebrated her 16th birthday. Gunfire echoed behind them, men screaming, more explosions. "Dominic!" Elena was gasping for breath. "If we don't make it." "We're going to make it. But if we don't." "Elena." Dominic stopped. He grabbed her face in both hands and forced her to look at him. "I have spent 3 years keeping you alive from 5,000 miles away. I am not going to lose you now. Do you understand me?" She nodded. "Good. Now run." They reached the panic room, a reinforced bunker beneath the palace built to withstand a nuclear strike. Dominic punched in the code, and the massive steel door swung open. "Get inside." "What about you?" "I'm going to end this." "Dominic, no." Elena grabbed his arm. "He'll kill you." "He's been trying to kill me for 20 years. Dominic smiled grimly. "Tonight, I stop running." "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. I'm not hiding in a bunker while you fight my war. This isn't your war. This is between me and my father. He attacked my palace. He killed my guards. He threatened my country." Elena's voice hardened. "That makes it my war." Dominic stared at her. She could see the argument forming on his lips, the 100 reasons why she should stay safe while he risked his life. But he also saw something else in her eyes. The same fire he had seen in the ballroom when she had stood before the Thornwoods and burned their world to ashes. "Fine," he said. "But you stay behind me. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments." "Deal." They moved through the palace like ghosts. Dominic took point, his rifle sweeping every corner, every doorway. Elena followed close behind the Glock, clutched in her hands. They found bodies in the hallways, palace guards, Victor's men. The marble floors were slick with blood. "He's in the throne room," Dominic said, checking his phone. "Security cameras show him waiting for us." "It's a trap." "Obviously." "So what do we do?" Dominic smiled. It was a cold smile, a dangerous smile. "We spring it." The throne room doors were open. Viktor Volkov sat on the throne itself, Elena's throne, the throne of her father and grandfather, and every Montenegrine monarch for 300 years. He was a handsome man in his 60s, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. He looked more like a CEO than a crime lord. But his eyes gave him away. They were Dominic's eyes, the same gray, the same coldness, but twisted. Corrupt, empty of anything resembling humanity. "Silas." Victor spread his arms wide. "My prodigal son returns, and you've brought me a princess. How thoughtful." "Let her go, father. This is between us." "Oh, it was between us. 20 years ago, when you betrayed your family and ran away like a coward." Victor stood up. "But then the princess decided to steal my money. Now it's between all of us." "I didn't steal anything." Elena stepped forward, ignoring Dominic's warning hand. "The Thornwoods stole from you. I just exposed them." "Semantics." Victor waved dismissively. "The result is the same. $400 million gone. My reputation damaged. My business partners nervous." He smiled. "Someone has to pay for that princess. I've decided it will be you. Touch her, and I'll kill you." Victor laughed. "You've been threatening to kill me since you were 18, Silas, and yet here I stand." He gestured around the room. "You're surrounded. I have 20 men outside this door. You have a princess who can barely hold a gun, and whatever pathetic skills you picked up in the Foreign Legion. I learned a lot of skills. Did you learn how to die because that's the only lesson left for tonight? Victor snapped his fingers. The doors behind them slammed open. Armed men poured in, surrounding Elena and Dominic in a tight circle. Drop your weapons, Victor ordered. Both of you. Now. Dominic didn't move. His rifle was still raised, pointed directly at his father's chest. You taught me something when I was a boy, Dominic said quietly. You taught me that a Volkov never surrenders, never negotiates, never shows weakness. I taught you many things. You forgot most of them. I forgot the ones that made me a monster. Dominic's finger tightened on the trigger. But I remembered the ones that made me dangerous. You can't kill all of us, Silas. You're good, but you're not that good. I don't have to kill all of you. Dominic smiled. I just have to kill you. Victor's eyes narrowed. For the first time, Elena saw a flicker of doubt on his face. You wouldn't. I'm your father. You stopped being my father the night you left me to die in that ditch. Dominic's voice was ice. Tonight, I'm just finishing what you started. The shot echoed through the throne room like thunder. Viktor Volkov staggered backward, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. Kill them, he screamed. Kill them both! The world exploded into chaos. Elena dove behind a pillar as gunfire erupted around her. She saw Dominic moving through Victor's men like a force of nature, shooting, fighting, breaking bones with brutal efficiency. But there were too many of them. A hand grabbed Elena's hair and yanked her backward. She screamed, firing blindly. The shot went wide. Got her! A voice shouted. Victor, I've got the princess! Elena struggled, but the grip was too strong. A knife pressed against her throat. Silas! Victor's voice cut through the gunfire. Stop or I'll have my man open her throat. Dominic froze. He was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by bodies. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. His rifle was empty, discarded on the floor. But he still held a pistol, and it was still pointed at Victor. Let her go. Drop the gun first. If I drop this gun, you'll kill us both. Perhaps. Victor smiled, clutching his wounded shoulder. But if you don't drop it, she dies now. Your choice, Silas. The mission or the woman. Elena felt the knife bite into her skin. A thin line of blood trickled down her neck. Dominic! She gasped. Don't. Touching. Victor sneered. She doesn't want you to sacrifice yourself for her. How noble. How stupid. Dominic looked at Elena. She saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Not fear. Not rage. Surrender. I love you, he said quietly. I should have told you years ago. I should have told you every Sunday at 3 a.m. when you called me crying. I should have told you every day of the last 3 years. But I was afraid. I was afraid that if you knew, you wouldn't need me anymore. Dominic, I'm sorry. He lowered the gun. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Victor laughed triumphantly. Finally. The great Dominic Kane brought low by a woman. How pathetically predictable. He raised his hand to give the order, and Elena moved. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just remembered something Dominic had taught her during one of their late-night self-defense sessions at the palace. If someone grabs you from behind, don't fight the grip. Go with it. Use their momentum against them. Elena went limp. Her captor stumbled, thrown off balance. For 1 second, his knife pulled away from her throat. 1 second was enough. Elena drove her elbow backward into his solar plexus. He doubled over. She grabbed the knife from his loosened grip and spun, driving it into his thigh. He screamed and fell. Dominic was already moving. He crossed the room in 3 strides, scooping up a fallen rifle, and opened fire on the remaining guards. Victor ran. He fled through a side door, clutching his bleeding shoulder, his expensive shoes slipping on the blood-slicked marble. Stay here, Dominic shouted to Elena. No! She ran after Victor. She found him in the corridor outside the throne room, stumbling toward the exit. He heard her footsteps and spun around, a pistol appearing in his hand. Stop right there, princess. Elena stopped. Drop the knife. She dropped it. Victor laughed, blood still streaming through his fingers. You're brave, I'll give you that. But bravery won't save you now. Your men are dead. Your son is coming. You've lost. I haven't lost. I still have this. He raised the pistol. And I still have enough time to take you with me. Elena looked into the eyes of the man who had turned Dominic's childhood into a nightmare. The man who had attacked her palace. The man who was about to kill her. She wasn't afraid. Do you know what I learned from your son? She asked. What? That the ones who survive aren't the strongest or the fastest. They're the ones who refuse to give up. She lunged at him. The gun fired. Pain exploded through Elena's side. She kept moving. She crashed into Victor, knocking him backward. They fell together, a tangle of limbs and blood. Victor tried to bring the gun up again, but Elena grabbed his wrist and slammed it against the floor. The pistol skittered away. Victor's hands wrapped around her throat. You stupid girl, he hissed. I'm going to enjoy this. Elena couldn't breathe. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. Then Victor's grip loosened. His eyes went wide. He looked down. The knife Elena had dropped was buried in his chest. She didn't remember picking it up. She didn't remember stabbing him. But there it was. Victor Volkov collapsed backward, the light fading from his eyes. Silas, he whispered. Silas, why? He didn't finish the sentence. Elena rolled off of him, gasping for air, her hand pressed against the bullet wound in her side. Blood soaked through her fingers. Dominic appeared above her, his face twisted with fear. Elena, stay with me. I got him, she whispered. I got him, Dominic. I know you did. Now stay awake. Help is coming. Is he dead? Dominic looked at his father's body, at the man who had tormented him for 18 years, at the monster who had haunted his nightmares for 2 decades. Yes, he said quietly. He's dead. Good. Elena closed her eyes. Then it's finally over. Elena. But she was already unconscious. The beeping was the first thing Elena heard. Steady, rhythmic, mechanical. The sound of machines keeping her alive. She tried to open her eyes, but they felt like they were weighted down with sand. Her mouth was dry. Her side burned with a pain that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. She's waking up. A woman's voice. Professional. Clinical. Elena. Dominic's voice. Close. Desperate. Elena, can you hear me? She forced her eyes open. Dominic's face swam into focus above her. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. A week's worth of stubble on his jaw. A bandage wrapped around his forehead where the cut had been. How long? Elena's voice came out as a croak. 4 days. Dominic's hand found hers. His grip was tight, almost painful. You've been in and out of surgery. The bullet nicked your liver. You lost a lot of blood. Victor, dead. You killed him. Elena closed her eyes. She remembered the knife, the feeling of it sliding into his chest, the look on his face as the light left his eyes. I've never killed anyone before. I know. I don't feel bad about it. She opened her eyes again. Should I feel bad about it? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. He would have killed you. He would have killed me. He would have destroyed everything you've built and everyone you love. What you did wasn't murder, Elena. It was survival. Is that how you felt the first time? Dominic's jaw tightened. No. The first time I felt like a monster. I was 15 years old and my father made me execute a man who owed him money. I threw up afterward. I didn't sleep for a week. What changed? I learned the difference between killing for power and killing to protect. Dominic squeezed her hand. You killed Victor to protect yourself, to protect your country, to protect me. That's not the same thing. Elena tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her side and she gasped. Don't. Dominic gently pushed her back down. The doctor said you need at least another week of bed rest. I don't have a week. The Thornwoods are finished. Dominic pulled out his phone and showed her a news headline. Arthur Thornwood had a heart attack 2 days ago. He died in federal custody. Constance is in a psychiatric facility after a complete mental breakdown. Marcus is facing 30 years in federal prison for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. And Vivian. Last I heard, she's working as a hostess at a restaurant in New Jersey. The St. Clair fortune collapsed when the Thornwood bonds defaulted. Her father declared bankruptcy yesterday. Elena stared at the ceiling. 3 years of suffering. 3 years of humiliation. 3 years of waiting for justice. It was finally over. The Prime Minister, she said. I need to speak to him. He's been waiting outside for 4 days. I've been keeping him out. Why? Dominic hesitated. Because you needed to rest. And because there are things you need to know before you talk to anyone else. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital air conditioning. What things? Dominic stood up and walked to the window. His back was to her, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. Victor didn't come to Montenegro just because of the money, he said quietly. He came because someone told him where to find you. Someone gave him the access codes to the palace security system. Someone turned off the perimeter alarms so his men could breach the north gate. You're saying we have a traitor. I'm saying we have several. Dominic turned to face her. The attack on the palace was coordinated from the inside. At least 3 members of your security team were working for Victor. They've been arrested, but under interrogation they revealed something worse. What could be worse than traitors in my own palace? They weren't working for Victor directly. They were working for someone else, someone who hired Victor to attack you. Elena's blood ran cold. Who? Your cousin, Prince Stefan. The name hit Elena like a slap. Stefan, her father's nephew. The man who had been next in line for the throne before Elena was born. The man who had smiled at her christening and given her a gold bracelet on her 10th birthday and told her at her father's funeral that she could always count on him for support. That's impossible, Elena whispered. Stefan loves me. He's been running the government for 3 years while I was gone. He could have taken the throne at any time. He couldn't. Your father's will was very specific. The throne passes to you on your 30th birthday, regardless of whether you're present to claim it. If Stefan wanted to rule Montenegro, he had to eliminate you before then. My birthday is in 3 weeks. I know. Elena tried to process what she was hearing. Her cousin, the man she had trusted to run her country, had hired a crime lord to murder her. How did you find out? Victor's phone. Dominic pulled a device from his pocket. He kept records of everything. Payments, communications orders. $30 million were transferred to his account 6 months ago from a shell company in Liechtenstein. That company is owned by another company in Panama, which is owned by a trust in the Cayman Islands. It took my team 4 days to trace the money back to its source. Stefan. Dominic's voice was hard. He's been planning this for years, Elena. He funded the Thornwood money laundering operation because he knew Victor would eventually come to collect. He fed Victor information about your security protocols. He's the one who told Victor about our relationship. Our relationship. Dominic met her eyes. Victor knew exactly how to hurt me. He knew that threatening you would make me surrender. That's not information he could have gathered on his own. Someone told him that you were my weakness. Elena remembered Victor's words in the throne room. The mission, or the woman, he had known. He had known that Dominic loved her before either of them had admitted it to themselves. Where is Stefan now? In the palace, playing the concerned cousin. He's been giving press conferences about the attack, positioning himself as the voice of stability during the crisis. Dominic's lip curled. He's been very careful to express his deep concern for your recovery, while subtly suggesting that perhaps Montenegro needs stronger leadership in these dangerous times. He's making a move for the throne. He's been making the move for years. You being in America was part of his plan. He assumed you would either die there or give up the crown voluntarily. When you destroyed the Thornwoods and came home, he panicked. Victor was his contingency plan. Elena pushed herself up on her elbows, ignoring the pain that screamed through her side. Help me up. Elena, you can't. Help me up, Dominic, now. He hesitated for only a moment. Then he crossed to the bed and carefully helped her sit up. The room spun. Elena grabbed his arm and held on until the dizziness passed. I need clothes, she said. And I need you to arrange a meeting of the Royal Council. You're not strong enough. I don't have the luxury of being weak. Elena met his eyes. Stefan thinks I'm lying in a hospital bed, helpless and vulnerable. He thinks he has 3 weeks to convince the council to remove me from the line of succession. He thinks he's already won. He's wrong. He's very wrong. Elena's voice hardened. I didn't survive the Thornwoods, survive Victor Volkov, and take a bullet to the liver just to let my cousin steal my throne. Arrange the meeting, Dominic, tonight. The doctors will never approve. I don't need their approval. I need yours. Elena reached up and touched his face. Are you with me? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. At the bandages wrapped around her torso. At the IV line still attached to her arm. At the determination burning in her eyes, despite the pain that was clearly written on her face. Always, he said quietly. Until the end. The council chamber was cold. Elena sat at the head of the long oak table dressed in a simple black dress that hid the bandages underneath. Her face was pale. Her hands were trembling slightly under the table where no one could see, but her voice was steady. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. The 12 members of the Royal Council shifted in their seats. They were the most powerful people in Montenegro, ministers, generals, business leaders, men and women who had served her father for decades, and one traitor. Stefan sat at the far end of the table, his handsome face arranged in an expression of concern. Cousin, should you really be out of bed? The doctors said. The doctors work for me, Stefan, not the other way around. Of course. I'm just worried about you. Stefan smiled warmly. We all are. The attack on the palace was devastating. 3 days ago, I wasn't sure if you would survive. I'm sure you weren't. Something flickered in Stefan's eyes, just for a moment. Then, the mask of concern was back in place. What is the purpose of this meeting? Your Highness? General Markovich, the head of the military, leaned forward. Is this about the security breach? Partially. Elena folded her hands on the table. As you all know, Victor Volkov attacked the palace 4 days ago. 18 of my guards were killed. The throne room was damaged. The north gate was destroyed. Murmurs around the table. What you don't know, Elena continued, is that Victor Volkov was hired to kill me. Someone paid him $30 million to breach the palace and eliminate the heir to the throne before my 30th birthday. The murmurs turned to shocked exclamations. That's impossible, Minister Petrovic, the finance minister, said. Who would do such a thing? Someone who wanted the throne for themselves. Elena kept her eyes fixed on Stefan. Someone who has been planning this for years. Someone who is sitting at this table right now. Stefan's face went pale. Cousin, what are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, Stefan. I'm stating facts. Elena nodded at Dominic, who stood by the door. Dominic stepped forward and placed a thick folder in front of each council member. In these folders you will find bank records, communications, and testimony from arrested members of my security team. All of it points to one person. Elena paused. Prince Stefan has been funding organized crime operations in Eastern Europe for the past 5 years. He used the profits to pay Victor Volkov to assassinate me. He provided Victor with access codes to the palace security system. He turned off the perimeter alarm so Victor's men could breach our defenses. This is outrageous. Stefan slammed his hand on the table. Elena, you're clearly not well. The trauma of the attack has affected your judgment. These accusations are baseless. Then explain the $30 million. Stefan froze. What? $30 million transferred from your personal trust to Viktor Volkov's account 6 months ago. The money trail is in Section 3 of your folder. Our forensic accountants have traced every transaction. Stefan grabbed the folder and flipped through it frantically. His face went from pale to gray as he read. This is fabricated. Someone is framing me. The testimony from your co-conspirators is in Section 4. Elena's voice was ice. 3 members of my security team have confessed to working for you. They've provided detailed accounts of meetings, payments, and instructions. They've identified you by name, by voice, by the specific orders you gave them. They're lying. Section 5 contains recordings. Elena leaned forward. Did you really think Viktor Volkov would trust you without insurance, Stefan? He recorded every conversation you ever had, every phone call, every meeting, including the one where you specifically instructed him to make my death look like a syndicate attack rather than an assassination. The room was completely silent. Stefan stood up slowly. His mask had finally cracked. Behind it, Elena saw something she had never seen before in her cousin's face. Hate. Pure, undiluted hate. You were supposed to die in America, Stefan hissed. You were supposed to marry that pathetic Thornwood boy and disappear into obscurity, but you couldn't even do that right, could you? You had to come back. You had to survive. You had to ruin everything. Stefan. General Markovich started to rise. Shut up. Stefan grabbed the knife from the place setting in front of him. All of you stay in your seats, or I swear to God I'll kill her right here. He moved toward Elena. Dominic was faster. He crossed the room in 3 strides and put himself between Stefan and Elena. His gun was drawn, pointed directly at Stefan's chest. Put the knife down. Or what, you'll shoot me? Stefan laughed. It was a wild, desperate sound. Go ahead. Make me a martyr. Let the people see the outsider mercenary murdering a prince of the blood. I won't let you touch her. You can't protect her forever. Stefan's eyes were manic. Even if you kill me, there are others. People who believe the throne belongs to the true bloodline, not some coffee shop girl who got lucky. They'll come for her. Again and again until she's dead. Stefan. Elena's voice was calm, almost gentle. Put down the knife. Why? So you can lock me in a cell and forget about me, so you can take everything that should have been mine. Nothing was ever going to be yours. Elena stood up slowly, ignoring Dominic's warning glance. My father chose me. He trained me. He trusted me with his country. You were always next in line, Stefan, but you were never meant to rule. Your father was a fool. My father was a king, and he knew something that you never understood. Elena stepped around Dominic, moving closer to her cousin. Power isn't taken, Stefan. It's earned. It's earned through sacrifice and suffering and service to something greater than yourself. Save the philosophy for your coronation speech. Stefan raised the knife. I should have done this myself years ago. He lunged. Elena didn't flinch. She had spent 3 years being beaten down by the Thornwoods. She had faced Viktor Volkov with nothing but a knife and her bare hands. She had killed a man and watched the light leave his eyes. She was done being afraid. She caught Stefan's wrist as he swung the knife. The blade stopped inches from her throat. I learned something in America, she said quietly. I learned that the people who hurt you expect you to stay down. They expect you to cower and beg and accept whatever crumbs they throw you. They never expect you to fight back. She twisted his wrist. Hard. Stefan screamed as the knife clattered to the floor. They never expect you to win. Elena released him. Stefan crumpled to his knees, cradling his wrist. General Markovich, Elena said calmly. Please have Prince Stefan arrested for high treason conspiracy to commit murder and attempted assassination of the sovereign. The general was already moving, flanked by 2 guards who had entered the room at Dominic's signal. You can't do this, Stefan screamed as they dragged him toward the door. I'm a prince. I'm royal blood. You're nothing. You're nobody. I'm your queen, Elena said. And you're going to spend the rest of your life remembering that. The doors closed behind him. Elena swayed. Dominic caught her before she fell. "Easy?" he murmured, holding her up. "I've got you." "I know." Elena leaned against him, suddenly exhausted. "I know you do." General Markovic approached slowly, his face a mixture of shock and admiration. "Your Highness, I don't know what to say. If I had known about Stefan—" "You couldn't have known. He was very careful." Elena straightened, though she kept one hand on Dominic's arm for support. "But now you do know, and I expect your loyalty going forward." "You have it, without question." The general bowed deeply. "All of us." Elena looked around the table. 11 faces stared back at her. Some were shocked, some were afraid. But all of them were looking at her differently than they had an hour ago. They were looking at her like a queen. "My coronation will proceed as scheduled," Elena announced. 3 weeks from today, I will formally ascend to the throne of Montenegro. I expect all of you to be there." "Your Highness," Minister Petrovic spoke up hesitantly. "There are protocols, traditions. The sovereign is usually escorted by a royal consort or a senior member of the family. I'm aware of the traditions. With Stefan arrested and no other suitable candidates, the council may need to postpone until a proper consort can be selected. The council will do no such thing." Elena's voice cut through his objections like a blade. "I will be crowned on schedule, and I already have someone in mind to stand beside me." She looked at Dominic. He looked back at her, his gray eyes unreadable. "Commander Kane," Elena said formally. "You have served as my protector for 3 years. You have saved my life more times than I can count. You have proven your loyalty beyond any shadow of doubt. Your Highness, I'm not finished." Elena took his hand. "You told me once that you were just a bodyguard, that the most you could hope for was to stand in the shadows and keep me safe from a distance. Do you remember that?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "I remember. I'm asking you to step out of the shadows." Elena's voice softened. "I'm asking you to stand beside me, not as my guard, not as my protector, as my partner, as my equal." The room was absolutely silent. "Elena," Dominic said quietly, "your council, your people, they won't accept me. I'm not royalty. I'm not even Montenegrin. I'm the son of a crime lord. My past. Your past made you the man you are today. The man who refused to become a monster. The man who spent 20 years protecting innocent people from the violence you grew up with. The man I love." Dominic's breath caught. "I didn't say it before," Elena continued. "When Victor was holding that knife to my throat, you told me you loved me, and I didn't say it back. I was afraid. I was bleeding. I thought I was going to die. But I'm saying it now." She reached up and touched his face. "I love you, Dominic Kane. I've loved you since the first Sunday you called me at 3 a.m. and let me cry for an hour without judgment. I've loved you through every dark night and every desperate prayer and every moment I thought I couldn't survive another day. You were the only light in 3 years of darkness." Elena. "So I'm asking you." She took his other hand. "Will you stand with me, not in the shadows, not behind the throne, beside it, beside me, for the rest of our lives?" Dominic stared at her. The room waited. And then slowly, Dominic Kane dropped to one knee. "I spent 20 years running from who I was," he said quietly. "I spent 20 years believing I didn't deserve love or happiness or peace. I spent 20 years punishing myself for sins that weren't mine to carry." He looked up at her. "Then I met you, and everything changed." He lifted her hand to his lips. "Yes, Elena, I will stand beside you. I will protect you. I will love you, until the end of my days and whatever comes after." Elena pulled him to his feet and kissed him. The council erupted into applause. When they finally broke apart, Elena was crying. Dominic was crying too, though he would deny it later. "Well," General Markovic said, a rare smile breaking across his weathered face, "I suppose that settles the consort question." "I suppose it does." Elena wiped her eyes, laughing. Meeting adjourned. We all have a coronation to prepare for. As the council members filed out, buzzing with excitement and shock and speculation, Dominic leaned close to Elena's ear. You know this is insane, right? Completely. The press is going to have a field day. Let them. Your approval ratings might drop. I don't care about ratings, Dominic. Elena looked up at him. I care about you. I care about doing what's right. I care about building something real after 3 years of living a lie. And what about the future? Stefan said there were others who believed the throne should pass to the true bloodline. They won't stop just because he's in prison. Elena's expression hardened. Then we'll stop them. Together. Dominic pulled her close. Together, he agreed. Outside the council chamber, the sun was rising over the Mediterranean. Golden light spilled through the palace windows, illuminating the blood-stained marble and the bullet holes in the walls. It would take months to repair the damage from Victor's attack. It would take years to root out all of Stefan's co-conspirators. It would take a lifetime to heal the wounds that both of them carried. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena felt hope. She had survived the Thornwoods. She had survived Viktor Volkov. She had survived her own cousin's betrayal. And now, standing in the ruins of her childhood home, with the man she loved by her side, she was ready to claim what was hers. The throne of Montenegro. And a future she had never dared to imagine. The weeks before the coronation passed in a blur of preparation and paranoia. Elena spent her days in meetings with ministers, generals, and diplomats. She reviewed security protocols, approved guest lists, and signed documents until her hand cramped. Every night, she fell into bed exhausted, only to wake up 3 hours later from nightmares about Viktor Volkov's hands around her throat. Dominic was always there when she woke up screaming. He never complained, never made her feel weak for needing him. He just held her until her breathing slowed, and the terror faded, then stayed awake, watching over her until dawn. You need to sleep, Elena told him one morning, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. You look terrible. I've looked worse. When you were in surgery, and I didn't know if you were going to live. Dominic poured himself another cup of coffee, his fifth of the morning. This is nothing. Dominic. Don't. He held up his hand. Don't tell me to take care of myself. Not until this coronation is over and you're safely on that throne. Then we can talk about sleep schedules. Elena wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. Dominic had spent 20 years protecting people. It was as natural to him as breathing. Asking him to stop would be like asking the sun not to rise. Fine, she said. But after the coronation, you're taking a vacation. A vacation, a real one, with beaches and cocktails and absolutely no assassination attempts. For the first time in days, Dominic smiled. I don't know how to take vacations. Then I'll teach you. Elena kissed his cheek. Consider it a royal command. The interrogation of Stefan's co-conspirators continued throughout the week. Elena insisted on observing every session. Dominic thought it was a bad idea. She was still recovering from her wound, and the stress was slowing her healing, but she refused to budge. I need to know who else betrayed me, she said. I need to look them in the eyes. There were 7 of them in total. 3 palace guards who had disabled the security systems. 2 members of Stefan's personal staff who had facilitated communications with Viktor. A junior minister who had funneled money through government accounts. And a maid, a woman who had worked in the palace for 15 years, who had planted listening devices in Elena's private chambers. The maid was the hardest to face. Her name was Maria. She had served Elena's family since before Elena was born. She had braided Elena's hair when she was a little girl. She had brought her soup when she was sick. She had cried at King Nikolai's funeral. And she had sold Elena's secrets to Stefan for $50,000. Why? Elena asked, sitting across from Maria in the interrogation room. I trusted you. My father trusted you. Why would you do this? Maria's eyes were red from crying, Her hands shook as she clutched them in her lap. "Prince Stefan said you weren't ready," she whispered. "He said you were too young, too inexperienced. He said Montenegro needed strong leadership, not a girl playing queen. So you decided to help him murder me." "I didn't know about the murder." Maria's voice broke. "I swear, Your Highness, I didn't know. Stefan told me he just wanted information. He said he was trying to protect the country, protect you from making mistakes. And you believed him. He was convincing." Maria looked up, tears streaming down her face. "He said your father had wanted him to guide you to make sure you were ready. He said everything he was doing was for the good of Montenegro." Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. Not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. "My father loved this country more than anything," Elena said quietly. "He spent his entire life serving it, and in his final days, the only thing he worried about was whether I would be strong enough to carry on his legacy." "Your Highness." "He didn't trust Stefan. He knew Stefan was ambitious. He knew Stefan resented being second in line. That's why he made me promise to experience life as a commoner before taking the throne. He wanted me to understand what real strength looks like." Elena stood up. "Real strength isn't about power, Maria. It's about sacrifice. It's about putting others before yourself. It's about doing the right thing even when it's hard." She looked down at the woman who had betrayed her. "Stefan never understood that. And neither did you. Please." Maria reached out, grasping at Elena's hand. "Please, Your Highness. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. I'll testify against Stefan. I'll tell you everything I know. Just please don't send me to prison. I have grandchildren. You should have thought about your grandchildren before you helped Stefan try to kill me." Elena pulled her hand away. "You'll receive a fair trial. That's more than you gave me." She walked out of the room without looking back. Dominic was waiting in the hallway. "That was hard to watch," he said quietly. "It was harder to do." Elena leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "I keep thinking about all the times she was in my room, all the times she served me tea or brought me breakfast, all the times I told her things I never told anyone else. She was feeding everything to Stefan. Everything." Elena closed her eyes. "Every doubt I had, every fear, every moment of weakness. Stefan knew exactly how to manipulate me because Maria told him where all my vulnerabilities were." "Elena." "The night before I left for America, I told Maria I was scared. I told her I wasn't sure I could go through with my father's plan. I told her I was afraid of being alone." Elena's voice cracked. "She held my hand and told me I was brave. She told me everything would be fine. And then she called Stefan and reported every word." Dominic pulled her into his arms. "It's over," he murmured against her hair. "Stefan is in prison. His co-conspirators are going to join him. No one is ever going to use your secrets against you again. You don't know that. I know I won't let it happen." Dominic pulled back and looked into her eyes. "I failed you once. I let Victor get to the palace. I let him hurt you. I won't fail you again." "You didn't fail me, Dominic. You saved my life." "I should have saved you sooner. I should have found the traitors before they could open the gates. I should have—" Elena put her hand over his mouth. "Stop," she said firmly. "Stop blaming yourself for things you couldn't control. You're not responsible for Stefan's betrayal. You're not responsible for Victor's attack. The only thing you're responsible for is being here with me now." She removed her hand. "Can you do that? Can you stop punishing yourself for 5 minutes and just be here?" Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "I'll try," he said finally. "That's all I ask." 3 days before the coronation, the first threat arrived. It came in the form of an envelope hand-delivered to the palace gates by a messenger who disappeared before security could question him. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message typed in block letters. "The throne belongs to the true blood. The pretender will not be crowned. Long live Prince Stefan." Elena read it 3 times before handing it to Dominic. "Well," she said. I suppose it was too much to hope that Stefan's supporters would give up quietly. This is serious. Dominic's jaw was tight. Whoever sent this has access to resources, professional messengers, typed notes to avoid handwriting analysis. This isn't some angry citizen with a grudge. This is organized. Can you trace it? I'm already working on it. Dominic tucked the letter into an evidence bag. But Elena, we need to consider postponing the coronation. No. If there's an organized group planning to disrupt, I said no. Elena's voice was steel. If I postpone now, they win. They prove that threats and intimidation can stop the legitimate transfer of power. I won't give them that satisfaction. Your safety is your job. Elena met his eyes. Find them, Dominic. Find them before the coronation. That's what I need from you. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. She could see the war raging behind his eyes, the protector who wanted to lock her in a bunker versus the soldier who understood the importance of standing ground. Fine, he said finally, but I'm tripling security, and you don't go anywhere without me. Not to meetings, not to fittings, not even to the bathroom. That might be awkward. I'll wait outside the door. Elena laughed despite herself. You're ridiculous. I'm thorough. Dominic's expression softened slightly. I can't lose you, Elena. Not now. Not after everything we've survived. You won't lose me. She took his hand. We've faced worse than anonymous letters. We'll face this too. The second threat came 2 days later. This time, it wasn't a letter. It was a bomb. The device was found in the coronation hall during a routine security sweep. It had been hidden inside a flower arrangement set to detonate during the ceremony. If it had gone off, it would have killed everyone within 50 feet, including Elena. Military-grade explosives. Dominic reported, his face grim. This wasn't amateur work. Someone with serious training put this together. Stefan's people. Possibly. Or someone else entirely. Dominic ran a hand through his hair. The Volkov Syndicate is in chaos since Victor's death. There are a dozen lieutenants fighting for control. Any one of them might want revenge for what happened. So we have Stefan's loyalists and Victor's successors both potentially trying to kill me. Yes. Elena sat down heavily. Her side was throbbing, the wound still hadn't fully healed, and the stress of the past weeks was taking its toll. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Maybe we should postpone. Dominic knelt in front of her. Elena. No, listen to me. She looked up at him, and for the first time since New York, he saw fear in her eyes. I'm not afraid of dying. I proved that when I fought Victor. But I am afraid of getting other people killed. If that bomb had gone off during the coronation, it wouldn't have just killed me. It would have killed you. It would have killed the council members. It would have killed every guard and guest and servant in that room. That's exactly why we can't postpone. What? If we postpone, we show them that their tactics work. Dominic took her hands. Every terrorist, every assassin, every enemy of Montenegro will know that all they have to do is plant a bomb and the government caves. You'll never be safe. There will always be another threat, another delay, another reason to hide. So what do? We go forward. Dominic's eyes were fierce. We go forward, and we show them that Montenegro doesn't bow to terrorists. We show them that their queen is stronger than their fear. And if they try again, then I stop them. Dominic squeezed her hands. That's what I do, Elena. That's what I've always done. I find the threats, and I eliminate them. Trust me to do my job. Elena looked at him, at the scars on his face, at the determination in his eyes, at the man who had spent his entire life protecting people from monsters. I trust you, she said quietly. I've always trusted you. Then trust me now. Let me handle security. You focus on being the queen Montenegro needs. Elena nodded slowly. Okay. 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 She managed a weak smile. But if you get yourself killed protecting me, I'm going to be very angry. Dominic leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Noted. The night before the coronation, Elena couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony of her private chambers, looking out at the city below. Thousands of lights twinkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, her people were sleeping, preparing for tomorrow's celebration. They had no idea how close they had come to losing their queen before she was even crowned. You should rest. Elena didn't turn around. She had heard Dominic's footsteps approaching. I can't, she said. Every time I close my eyes, I see the bomb. I see the coronation hall in flames. I see you. Her voice broke. Dominic moved to stand beside her. He didn't touch her. He just stood there, a solid presence in the darkness. I found them, he said quietly. Elena turned. What? The group behind the threats. Stefan's loyalists. 6 men, all former military, all connected to Stefan, through a private security company he used to own. Dominic's voice was flat, professional. They were planning a coordinated attack during the ceremony. Multiple shooters positioned in the gallery. A backup bomb in case the first one was discovered. Where are they now? In custody. All 6 of them. We picked them up an hour ago. Elena felt her knees go weak. She grabbed the balcony railing to steady herself. It's over. This cell is neutralized. There may be others, but they've lost their leadership and their resources. Dominic turned to face her. You're safe, Elena. Tomorrow is going to happen exactly as planned. The tears came before she could stop them. 3 years of fear. 3 years of abuse. 3 years of wondering if she would ever feel safe again. And now, standing on this balcony with the man who had fought armies to protect her, Elena finally let herself believe it was over. I'm sorry, she gasped, wiping her eyes. I don't know why I'm crying. This is good news. You're crying because you've been holding it together for weeks, months, years. Dominic pulled her into his arms. You don't have to be strong right now. Not with me. Elena buried her face in his chest and sobbed. She cried for the 3 years she had lost to the Thornwoods. She cried for the guards who had died in Victor's attack. She cried for the cousin who had betrayed her and the servant who had sold her secrets. She cried for her father who had died believing in a daughter she wasn't sure she could become. And she cried from relief. Pure, overwhelming relief that she was still alive. Dominic held her through all of it. He didn't speak. He didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He just held her, his arms strong and steady, until the tears finally stopped. Better, he asked quietly. Yeah. Elena pulled back, wiping her face. Sorry, I got your shirt wet. I have other shirts. She laughed weakly. I must look terrible. You look like a woman who has survived more in 3 years than most people face in a lifetime. Dominic cupped her face in his hands. You look like a queen. I don't feel like a queen. You will. Tomorrow when you put on that crown, when you stand in front of your people and swear to protect them, you'll feel it. Dominic smiled. I've seen a lot of leaders in my life, Elena. Presidents, generals, kings. None of them had what you have. What do I have? Heart. He kissed her forehead. The Thornwoods tried to break it. Victor tried to stop it. Stefan tried to corrupt it. And it's still beating, still fighting, still loving, despite everything you've been through. Elena closed her eyes. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Dominic pulled her close. Now come to bed. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Will you stay? I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight. Not ever. They walked back into the bedroom together. Elena didn't have any more nightmares. For the first time in 3 years, she slept peacefully. The morning of the coronation dawned clear and bright. Elena stood in front of the mirror in her dressing room, watching the stylists put the finishing touches on her appearance. The gown was ivory silk embroidered with gold thread in patterns that represented the history of Montenegro. A cape of deep blue velvet trailed behind her, lined with ermine fur. She looked like a queen. She didn't feel like one. 5 minutes, Dominic said, appearing in the doorway. He was wearing his formal uniform black with gold epaulets medals gleaming on his chest. He looked like something out of a fairy tale. I'm not ready. You are. I'm going to trip on my cape. I'm going to forget the words to the oath. I'm going to... Elena. Dominic crossed the room and took her hands. Look at me. She looked. You survived Constance Thornwood. You survived Marcus. You survived Viktor Volkov and a bullet to the liver and your own cousin's betrayal. This... He gestured at the crown waiting on its velvet pillow. This is just a ceremony. Just words and symbols and tradition. It's more than that. No, it isn't. You've already proven who you are. You've already earned the right to wear that crown. Today is just making it official. Elena took a deep breath. You'll be there the whole time. I'll be standing right beside you. Dominic squeezed her hands. Where I belong. The coronation hall was filled to capacity. 2,000 guests filled the pews. Dignitaries from around the world, representatives from every country in Europe. Leaders of industry and government and culture. Television cameras lined the walls broadcasting the ceremony to millions of viewers around the globe. Elena walked down the center aisle alone. It was tradition. The monarch-to-be had to approach the throne without escort, symbolizing the solitary burden of leadership. But Elena didn't feel alone. She could feel Dominic's eyes on her from his position at the front of the hall. She could feel the weight of her father's memory guiding her steps. She reached the throne and turned to face the crowd. The Archbishop of Montenegro approached, carrying the ancient crown of the royal house on a velvet cushion. Elena Maria Petrovich, he intoned. You come before God and country to accept the sacred burden of leadership. Do you swear to protect the people of Montenegro with your life? I swear. Do you swear to uphold justice, defend the weak, and serve the nation before yourself? I swear. Do you swear to honor the legacy of your ancestors and preserve the traditions they have entrusted to you? I swear. The Archbishop lifted the crown. Then, by the authority vested in me by God and the laws of Montenegro, I crown you Queen Elena, the first sovereign of this nation and guardian of its people. The crown settled onto her head. It was heavier than she expected. The hall erupted in applause. 2,000 people rose to their feet, cheering, crying, celebrating the dawn of a new era. Elena looked out at the sea of faces. She saw General Markovic, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. She saw Minister Petrovic applauding with genuine enthusiasm. She saw dignitaries and diplomats and ordinary citizens who had been lucky enough to secure tickets. And she saw Dominic. He was standing at the front of the hall, exactly where he had promised to be. He wasn't cheering. He wasn't crying. He was just looking at her with an expression she had never seen before. Pride. Pure, unguarded pride in the woman she had become. Elena raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. People of Montenegro, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. I stand before you today not as a princess who has inherited a throne, but as a woman who has earned the right to serve you. She paused. 3 years ago, I left this country to fulfill a promise I made to my father. He asked me to experience life as a commoner, to understand the struggles of ordinary people, to learn what it truly means to be strong. Her voice strengthened. I learned that strength is not about power or wealth or titles. It is about endurance. It is about standing up when the world tries to push you down. It is about protecting the people you love, even when it costs you everything. She looked at Dominic. I learned that from the people who tried to break me, and I learned it from the man who helped me put myself back together. The crowd murmured. Everyone knew the story by now. The tabloids had been running it for weeks. The Princess and the Bodyguard, the fairy tale romance born from tragedy. Commander Dominic Kane has served this nation with honor and distinction. He has saved my life more times than I can count. And in 3 weeks' time he will become my husband and your king. The hall erupted again. Dominic's expression didn't change. But Elena saw his eyes glisten just for a moment before he blinked it away. Together. Elena continued, raising her voice above the cheering. We will build a Montenegro worthy of your trust. A nation of justice, compassion, and strength. A nation that protects its people instead of exploiting them. A nation that stands tall against tyranny and terror. She lifted her chin. I am your queen. And I promise you this, I will never stop fighting for you. I will never stop serving you. I will never stop loving this country that my father gave his life to protect. She extended her hand toward Dominic. Will you stand with me? He didn't hesitate. He walked up the steps to the throne, took her hand, and stood beside her. 2,000 people rose to their feet, their cheers shaking the rafters. Elena looked out at her kingdom, at the people who had trusted her with their futures, at the nation she had promised to protect. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The crown on her head was heavy, but with Dominic beside her, she could carry it. 3 months had passed since the coronation. Elena stood at the window of her private study, watching the sun set over the Mediterranean. The sky was painted in shades of gold and crimson, and somewhere in the city below, church bells were ringing for evening mass. It was peaceful. She still wasn't used to peaceful. You're brooding again. Elena turned. Dominic was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, and a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up. She still wasn't used to seeing him out of his tactical gear. I'm not brooding. I'm reflecting. That's what people say when they're brooding, but don't want to admit it. Dominic crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind. What are you reflecting on? Everything. Nothing. Elena leaned back against his chest. The trial starts tomorrow. I know. Stefan is going to be there, in the courtroom, looking at me. He can't hurt you anymore. I know that too. Elena turned in his arms to face him. But I keep thinking about what he said, that there are others who believe the throne belongs to the true bloodline. What if he's right? What if there are people who will never accept me as queen? There will always be people who don't accept you. Dominic tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. That's true of every leader in history. The question isn't whether everyone loves you. The question is whether you're doing the right thing. Am I? You've restructured the cabinet to include more diverse voices. You've increased funding for education and healthcare. You've established an anti-corruption task force that's already recovered millions in stolen funds. Dominic smiled. I'd say you're doing okay. The polls say my approval rating is at 67%. That's higher than most European monarchs. It's also 33% who don't approve. Elena sighed. What if they're right? What if I'm not ready for this? Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then he took her face in his hands and made her look at him. Do you remember what you said to me the night before the coronation, when I was beating myself up for letting Victor get to the palace? I told you to stop punishing yourself for things you couldn't control. Exactly. Now I'm telling you the same thing. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You can't control what people think. You can only control what you do. And what you've done, what you're doing, is extraordinary. It doesn't feel extraordinary. It feels like barely keeping my head above water. That's what leadership is. Anyone who tells you different is lying. Dominic kissed her forehead. Now come on. We have a dinner to get to. The ambassador's reception. 3 hours of diplomatic small talk and overcooked salmon. Elena groaned. Can't we skip it? You're the queen. You can do whatever you want. Then I want to skip it. But you won't. Dominic smiled knowingly. Because the ambassador represents our largest trading partner, and alienating him would be politically unwise. I hate it when you're right. I know. Now go get dressed. I'll be waiting. The reception was exactly as tedious as Elena had expected. She smiled until her face hurt. She made small talk with diplomats whose names she immediately forgot. She ate overcooked salmon and pretended to enjoy it. She did everything a queen was supposed to do. But through it all, she found herself watching Dominic. He moved through the crowd with a grace that seemed at odds with his size. He shook hands, made jokes, charmed wives, and intimidated rivals. He was playing a role she realized the role of royal consort, future king, reformed bad boy turned devoted husband. But every few minutes, his eyes would find hers across the room. Just checking. The international community is very impressed. Thank you. I've had a lot of help. Yes, Commander Kane. Chen glanced at Dominic across the room. Quite a story, the two of you. A princess in hiding, and a bodyguard with a dark past. It's like something out of a movie. It felt more like a nightmare while we were living it. I'm sure it did. Chen lowered his voice. I wanted to warn you, Your Majesty. There are rumors. Elena's smile didn't falter, but her attention sharpened. What kind of rumors? The Volkov Syndicate is reorganizing. There's a new leader, a man named Alexei Petrov. He was Viktor Volkov's second in command. I've heard the name. Then you know he's dangerous. Possibly more dangerous than Viktor was. Chen sipped his champagne. Word is, he's not happy about what happened to his predecessor. Word is, he's planning something. Something against Montenegro. Something against you, specifically. Chen met her eyes. I'm telling you this as a friend, Your Majesty, not as a diplomat. Watch your back. I always do. And watch Commander Kane's back, too. Petrov knows that hurting him would hurt you. He may try to use that. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Thank you for the warning, Ambassador. It's the least I can do. Montenegro has been a good friend to China. I'd hate to see anything happen to its queen. Chen raised his glass. To your health, Your Majesty, and your continued reign. He disappeared into the crowd. Elena found Dominic 10 minutes later standing by the bar. We need to talk, she said quietly. I know. His expression was grim. I just got a message from my intelligence contacts. Alexei Petrov has put a price on our heads. Both of us? Both of us. 10 million each. Dominic's jaw tightened. He's calling it a wedding gift. Elena felt her stomach turn. When were you going to tell me? Tonight, after the reception. He took her arm and guided her toward a quiet corner. I didn't want to ruin your evening. My evening was already ruined by overcooked salmon. This just adds a nice layer of mortal danger to the mix. Dominic almost smiled. You're handling this well. I've had practice. Elena looked up at him. What do? We increase security. We activate our intelligence networks. We find Petrov before he finds us. And then we end this, permanently. Elena was quiet for a moment. Dominic, I'm tired of living like this, looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next attack. I thought killing Viktor would be the end of it. It was the end of Viktor. But the syndicate is bigger than one man. Dominic took her hands. I know you're tired. I know you want peace. But we can't have peace until we cut out the rot completely. Can we cut it out completely, I mean? We find out where he is operating, where his money comes from, who his partners are. And then we destroy him the same way I destroyed the Thornwoods. That's dangerous. So is waiting for him to strike first. Elena. I'm not the scared girl who needed you to save her anymore, Dominic. Elena squared her shoulders. I killed Viktor Volkov with my own hands. I faced down my cousin and exposed his treason.